Hi everyone and welcome to Fred Talks, a podcast where we talk all about the fashion industry and why it might be more important than you think but less glamorous than it seems. Just to start today, I want to apologize if my voice sounds a bit weird because I've got a cold, but we gotta do what we gotta do. Now that I gave you the disclaimer, the topic of today's episode is sustainability. Now, I know this has been the topic in the fashion industry for ages because, let's face the facts, fashion industry is the one that destroys our planet quite the most, or one of the most. We overconsume fashion, there's more clothes than we can ever use at this very point. It's growing, the waste is growing, it's terrible. We know it, we've been talking about it for ages, and no one really can find a solution for it. However, France might be onto something now, because they recently passed, or are trying to pass, a bill that will add taxes onto fast fashion pieces. Now, that itself sounds great. However, it creates a big conversation, because the bill itself, or the law regulation, composed from two main components, I guess, or the two main parts that I've read about in different articles. And that is that one would obviously add the tax to every fast fashion piece that you buy, which would be up to 5 or 7 euros on each piece, which is a lot of money if you think about it. Like, if you buy a t-shirt for 5 euros or 10 euros, that's a difference. And that creates a conversation. This part itself creates a conversation about, yes, it will prevent people from buying fast fashion. It will prevent the brands from making fast fashion. However, there's an also issue with people who only buy fast fashion because they can't afford anything else, having the issue affording it. Then another part of this regulation is that it's going to ban advertising the most inexpensive materials, which is great because I feel like a lot of people tend to forget that the materials are also a big part of the problem that we have with the environment. I was thinking about how I should discuss this bill with you because, again, I feel like there are some great sides of it and there are some issues, but I think the best way is to kind of talk through what the bill is actually meant to do and how it's going to impact. And for this, we have to understand the issues that's with sustainability that the fashion industry present us or creates is the better word. I decided to start with who it targets. Essentially, it's specifically meant to target brands, fast fashion brands like Shein, Zara, H&M. Which makes sense, right? If you think about fast fashion, for me personally, Shein is the first on the list to come up to my mind. However, Shein specifically keeps arguing that their business model effectively keeps proportion of unsold garments very low. This, they claim, contributes to reducing waste, a crucial aspect of sustainability in fashion. Now, if that is true or not is a discussion for another day. However, that is a great point. I actually found about this bill by seeing a post by Fashion Roadman, who is a fashion journalist. He's great. If you don't know him, definitely go check him out. And he was reacting to an article about this bill, and he mentioned that he is worried that the bill is only going to focus on brands that are fast fashion in terms of price, but not the brands that are more expensive. However, they operate like fast fashion brands. And he mentioned specifically the scandal that Burberry had, where they were destroying garments that were unsold, which obviously is a huge issue. And that is something that we really need to realize, that just because a brand is cheap, or more like just because a brand isn't cheap, just because a brand is expensive, it doesn't mean they don't operate as fast fashion in a fast fashion way. Many conversations on this topic when it comes to sustainable brands, because what the most sustainable thing to do is pretty much to be walking around naked. And all the sustainable brands who still make hundreds and thousands and I don't know how much of garments, claiming they are sustainable because of their fabrics, for example, are still not sustainable because they're still making garments that we don't need and then we won't use. So I think that this is something really important to focus on, and I really hope France will be focusing and will put the effort and the energy and the focus onto all brands and all fashion brands and not just the ones that have the label of being fast fashion. Another thing that I think we need to focus on is the fabrics. I just mentioned them a little bit now. With fabrics, I think it's a bit tricky because I feel like they are something that people tend to forget that is the problem and is something they should be focusing on when making a purchase. So I think it's great that France is also going to ban advertising the cheapest fabrics because it will show or it will point on the fabrics being the issue as well. Because if, I'm sure everyone experienced it, right? You go to H&M, there's a sale, they have a t-shirt that costs £5. You wear it, you wash it, and after one wash you take it out of the laundry and it doesn't look great. The fabric's gone grey. If, like, for example, if it's white, the fabric's gone grey, or the fabric just changed the color. You can see the little, whatever they call, I have no clue, little threads. I mean, I could probably remember the name thread considering that my channel is called Thread Talks, but hey ho. And usually the shape of the garment, whatever piece of clothing it is, kind of loosens up, or the other way around, it shrinks. And what do you do with something like that? You just throw it away, don't you? Because you can't really wear it anymore. And that itself is an issue because you've been robbed of the money and you're creating more waste. But the issue also is that synthetic fabrics take so much longer to decompose than natural fabrics. For example, a t-shirt made out of polyester will take between 20 to 200 years to decompose. Not to mention that those synthetic fabrics often leach toxic chemicals into the groundwater and soil while taking 200 years to decompose. Compared to that, a cotton t-shirt will take between 2 to 5 months to biodegrade, which obviously is so incomparably less, hence much more sustainable. However, we can argue that the natural materials are harsh on our planet when it comes to the production. However, as Quinn Nguyen, I really apologize if I completely butchered her name, wrote in her article that I will link down below because it's amazing if you are interested in the sourcing of the materials and how they impact the environment. She says, sourcing stage of natural fabrics can be sustainable when raw materials are recycled from waste or obtained from organic farming systems. So you see, it's not only important to look at what the material is, if it's synthetic or if it's natural, but also on how it's resourced. Because just because something is from wool or something is from cotton, it doesn't mean it didn't have a huge environmental impact while it was in the making. If you have a woolen coat or a woolen jumper, you will notice that eventually, and by eventually I mean quite quickly, the fabric will become a bit loose and it will create those little balls, which I have no idea what's it called in English and I can't Google it, so I'm gonna show you a picture and I hope you understand what I mean. And I personally have this experience where I have a jumper that is amazing quality when it comes to fabric. The fabric is amazing quality. However, it very quickly, I think within like maybe 5-6 months, it did exactly that, and it doesn't look good anymore. I still wear it because I love the color, but it's not great. And if I really cared about how I look, I would have to throw it away again, already. While the jumper that I'm wearing now, I have had for maybe 4 or 5 years, and it's still in a great shape. It looks pretty much the same as when I bought it. And this is by no chance natural fabric. It wasn't really that expensive. It's clearly synthetic. You can feel it when you wear it, but it's not so synthetic that it would be uncomfortable to wear. Like, it's still nice to wear. It feels nice. But obviously, this is going to take much longer to biodegrade, which I'm fully aware of. However, I've been wearing it for much longer, and I'm quite sure this is going to last me for next at least 3 years before it gets to a point where it's too unwearable, pretty much. So I think this is also something to keep in mind, that not in all of the cases natural fabrics are better, even if they are sourced better, because if you have to buy 5 woolen jumpers in 5 years compared to buying one in 5 years that is synthetic, it's obviously more sustainable to buy the synthetic one. And this leads me to the issue that I believe is the more important one when it comes to sustainability, and that is customer behavior. As I said at the beginning, the bill is gonna add, or is aiming to add, an extra €5 on each piece, on each fast fashion piece that you buy, which can cause a lot of issues for a lot of people. I know that the aim with this is to make people buy less fast fashion, but as I mentioned before, I'm quite sure I mentioned before, not everyone can afford not to buy fast fashion. For some people, that is the only option. For example, if you have a single mom that just can't afford to buy a t-shirt for her kid that costs 20, 30, 40 pounds, obviously she is going to go to Primark to buy the one that costs a tenner, because especially if she has a child that's small, that's still growing, that will go to school, that will go to, I don't know, a park after school and will just drop on the mud and will destroy the clothes quite easily. It's not sustainable for her to keep buying cotton t-shirts from slow fashion brands. And the truth is, we criticize fast fashion because we see girls on TikTok buying or showing 100,000 or $100 worth Shein haul, whatever. But, which obviously that is terrible, it's insane. But if you think about it, that is just quite a small proportion of the population. The truth is that the ones that abuse fast fashion are the ones interested in fashion. Not everyone cares to have 50 pairs of shoes or coat in every color and having trousers to go with it. Most of the people I think, and I would say, just don't care. So even if they are buying fast fashion, they don't buy new things every month or every week. Like, for example, when I was a child, we would be buying fast fashion, but it definitely wasn't we would go to shops every week, but we definitely wouldn't buy something every week, because a lot of people don't care and can't afford it. So the issue really aren't the single moms who buy a t-shirt for their kid in Zara, or, to be fair, Zara is quite pricey, but let's say in Shein, or the girl who buys her prom dress at Shein, or the lad who just goes to a first shop, he sees these shirts, likes it, buys it. But for a lot of these people, putting the €5 bill is a punishment, because it will just make their life harder. As I said, if you buy there is a difference between a t-shirt costing £5 and t-shirt being £10, because as I said, there's a difference between paying £5 for a t-shirt and £10 for a t-shirt. And yeah, it will show. We can think that £5 isn't a lot, but for some people, €5 isn't a lot. But for some people, €5 is a lot, and adding this bill can kind of punish the innocent. There is pretty much nothing more sustainable except for walking around naked, which isn't really legal. And as the fashion roadman also mentions, if the bill passes, we might see more of a normalization of thrift shopping, which would be great. But at the same time, I personally feel like the boom of thrift shops happened maybe 5 years ago, and at this point it is quite normal to go and shop in them. I do agree that it's not as spread, or it's not as common as it could be after this bill passes. However, I don't really think that it's really an issue that we need to address at this very moment. And my issue with thrift shops are also the fact that, because they are sustainable and they are great, and they really are the best thing pretty much you can do at this very moment for our planet, they make some people believe that because it's sustainable, they can shop more. And I've seen this in my life. I have a friend who has always been a shopaholic. She always loved shopping, and she always shopped a lot. And at one point of her life, as she got older, she turned into more... She is very, environmental friendly, very spiritual, earth friendly type of a person. And when thrift shops started, I did notice that because that's a thing, she stopped her over-consumption habit. But then the popularity of thrift shops started, and I did notice, started shopping much more because it was from a thrift shop, so it's alright, she didn't create a new thing. But then that is still overconsumption, because I remember her buying a denim jacket which I have never not once seen her wear, and we went to school together, so I saw her every day. And you know what happens with this denim jacket? It's gonna end up on the landfill anyway. So what I'm trying to get into is that the bill is great. It's a great idea. It's definitely a big step forward, but it's not gonna be enough on its own. What we should be doing is educating people more. I think in school we should start educating young kids on how their shopping behavior is gonna affect the planet, because if you teach them from a very young age, then they will not have the need to be shopping as much. For example, in my household, my mom always had a rule, right? If she had a clothes that she was not going to wear anymore, if it was in a good condition, it goes to thrift shop. If it was in a slightly worse condition but still completely fine to wear, it goes to charity shop. And if it was just completely gone, if no one's gonna wear it anymore, she cut it into pieces and she uses as a cloth for cleaning. So nothing goes to waste. The amount of time now that I moved out, that I come home and I'm gonna clean something and I pick up a cloth and it's a piece of my t-shirt, and I have adapted this myself. If I have a sock that already has been patched 5 times and there's still a new hole coming every week, it's going to the bathroom, I'm going to clean bathroom with it. Speaking of bathroom, someone woke up.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
So yeah, if we teach our kids how to shop responsibly, and I don't know, I'm not a parent, so I can't really say how you should raise your kids, but it is children that is our future, quite obviously. And if we make sure that we don't only educate ourselves, but also them and everyone around us, then we all would be happier. And that, in my opinion, is the true solution to the more sustainable world, or the most sustainable fashion world. Obviously, together with the laws and regulations and bills, because in the end of the day, the government has a big power to regulate certain things and to regulate fast fashion. So I definitely think that it's a great step forward. But again, it's half and half. We can't just depend on them. We also have to look at ourselves.